There is a moment in every person's life when the road ahead becomes so dark, so steep, so unbearably difficult that you stop. You look back at everything you have lost, everything that didn't work, every dream that collapsed, every door that closed in your face, and a voice inside you whispers, "Maybe this wasn't meant for me." You stand there in the terrifying silence of your own perceived failure, feeling the heavy, hollow ache of loneliness pressing down on your chest, convinced that you have somehow taken a wrong turn, that you have squandered your potential, and that the universe has abandoned you to wander in a wasteland of your own making. But what if that voice was wrong? What if the very road that is breaking you is the only road that could ever truly build you? We live in a world that is obsessed with the illusion of the smooth path, a culture that constantly peddles the dangerous lie that success, happiness, and fulfillment should be a linear, uninterrupted ascent toward the light, free from the messy, agonizing realities of human suffering. Society conditions us from a very young age to believe that if we are experiencing profound pain, if our lives have completely collapsed, if we are paralyzed by grief and confusion, it must mean that we are fundamentally broken, that we have failed the test of life, and that we must desperately scramble back to the safety of conformity and comfort. We are taught to numb our sadness, to medicate our despair, to hide our shadows behind a fragile mask of toxic positivity, and to run as fast as we can from the very darkness that holds the key to our ultimate liberation. But this superficial, desperate flight from suffering is the exact reason why so many people live lives of quiet desperation, feeling utterly disconnected from their true selves, trapped in a shallow existence that lacks meaning, depth, and authentic power. The truth, the ancient, sacred, and terrifying truth that has been understood by mystics, philosophers, and depth psychologists for centuries, is that the hardest roads always lead to the most beautiful destinations, not because the universe is cruel and demands a toll of pain, but because the false, superficial version of who you are must be completely destroyed before the unbreakable, luminous, extraordinary version of you can finally be born. Think of the story of the Chinese bamboo tree, a profoundly beautiful metaphor for the hidden architecture of true transformation and the invisible, excruciating process of deep psychological growth. When a farmer plants the seed of a bamboo tree in the fertile earth, he must water it, nurture it, and protect it every single day, pouring his time, his energy, and his hope into the soil, but for an entire year, absolutely nothing happens. The surface of the dirt remains completely undisturbed, offering no sign of life, no validation, no reward for his relentless effort. The second year passes, and still there is nothing but empty soil. The third year comes and goes, bringing with it the crushing weight of doubt, the whispers of neighbors who tell him he is wasting his life, the terrifying thought that the seed was dead from the start. But still he waters the empty ground. The fourth year arrives, and the farmer is now operating purely on blind faith, staring at a barren patch of earth that seems to mock his dedication, feeling the heavy, painful sting of apparent failure as he continues to pour his soul into what looks like nothingness. But then, in the fifth year, something miraculous, almost unbelievable happens. A tiny green shoot finally breaks through the surface of the earth, and within the astonishingly short span of just 6 weeks, that bamboo tree explodes into the sky, growing to a staggering height of 80 feet, rising with a power and a majesty that defies comprehension. Did that towering, magnificent tree really grow 80 feet in just 6 weeks, or was it growing underground for 5 long, invisible, agonizing years? The truth is that during those 5 years of apparent nothingness, the bamboo seed was not dormant, it was not dead, and it was not failing. It was desperately, tirelessly growing a massive, complex, deeply entrenched root system underground, a foundation so wide, so strong, and so deeply embedded in the earth that it could eventually support the massive, rapid, extraordinary growth that was destined to come. If the tree had tried to sprout and shoot upward before those roots were fully developed, if it had sought the easy road and rushed toward the sun without doing the dark, unseen work in the dirt, the first strong wind would have completely toppled it, destroying it forever. You are the bamboo tree and the agonizing, unbearable period of your life right now, the doors that keep closing, the relationships that have collapsed, the dreams that seem to be rotting in the ground. This is not the universe punishing you, and it is not a sign that you are a failure. This is your invisible root growth. You are being forced to stay in the dark, painful, terrifying soil of your own suffering because you are being asked to build a psychological and spiritual foundation that is deep enough, strong enough, and unbreakable enough to hold the immense, luminous destiny that is waiting for you. This profound period of unseen struggle, this devastating collapse of everything you thought you knew, is what the great mystical traditions and depth psychologists call the dark night of the soul, a deeply necessary, sacred, and terrifying process of psychological dismantling where the false identity, the ego that you constructed to please the world, is systematically broken down and stripped away so that the true, authentic, individuated self can finally emerge. You cannot bypass the dark night of the soul if you want to achieve true depth. You must surrender to it. You must let the fire of your disappointment burn away the illusions you have been clinging to, and you must allow the heavy, crushing weight of your current reality to press you deeper into the earth of your own psyche. No one understood this terrifying, magnificent process of psychological alchemy better than the legendary Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, a man who did not merely study the human mind from the safe, detached distance of a sterile academic laboratory, but a man who actually lived the agonizing, terrifying descent into the darkest, most chaotic depths of his own unconscious psyche, earning his profound wisdom through a personal breakdown that would have completely destroyed a lesser man. To truly understand the magnitude of what Jung discovered about the necessity of suffering, you must first understand the devastating, heartbreaking collapse of his own life, the absolute annihilation of his professional and personal world that forced him into the very darkness he would later teach the world to navigate. In the early 20th century, Carl Jung was the golden child of the psychoanalytic movement, a brilliant, charismatic, widely respected psychiatrist who had been personally chosen by Sigmund Freud, the undisputed king of psychology, to be his heir apparent, his closest confidant, and the future leader of the entire psychoanalytic world. Jung had everything a man could possibly want: immense prestige, international fame, the deep, fatherly love and approval of his greatest mentor, a thriving medical practice, and a seemingly secure, glittering future that promised nothing but continuous ascent and intellectual glory. But deep within the quiet, hidden chambers of his own psyche, a profound and terrifying conflict was brewing, a quiet voice of authentic truth that began to relentlessly whisper that Freud's theories, which reduced all human motivation to mere biological drives and repressed sexuality, were fundamentally incomplete, suffocating, and blind to the vast, mysterious, spiritual dimensions of the human soul. Jung knew with absolute, terrifying certainty that if he spoke his truth, if he published his own diverging ideas and stayed loyal to the authentic calling of his own soul, he would deeply betray Freud. He would be instantly excommunicated from the psychoanalytic community. He would lose his prestigious position, his reputation would be dragged through the mud, and he would be cast out into the cold, isolated wilderness of professional ruin. The easy road, the smooth, comfortable, universally celebrated path, would have been to simply keep his mouth shut, to swallow his own truth, to conform to Freud's rigid dogma, and to inherit the psychological kingdom that had been promised to him, living a life of wealthy, respected, but deeply hollow and inauthentic compliance. But Jung, driven by an unstoppable, uncontrollable urge toward deep psychological authenticity, chose the hardest road imaginable. He published Psychology of the Unconscious, fundamentally breaking away from Freud's theories, and in doing so, he initiated the absolute, devastating collapse of his entire life. The fallout was catastrophic, immediate, and unbearably painful. Freud completely severed all ties with him. His colleagues universally turned their backs on him. His academic invitations vanished overnight. His friends abandoned him, and Jung was suddenly left completely alone, isolated, professionally disgraced, and plunging headfirst into a state of profound, terrifying, psychological freefall. This was Jung's dark night of the soul, his entry into the dark, suffocating soil where the false ego is crushed, and the pain of this immense loss triggered a complete psychological breakdown, a terrifying, uncontrollable descent into the deepest, darkest, most chaotic realms of his own unconscious mind. He began to experience horrifying, apocalyptic visions, waking dreams of Europe drowning in rivers of blood, overwhelming floods of terrifying archetypal imagery that threatened to completely shatter his sanity, leaving him clinging to the edge of reality, fearing that he was actually going completely schizophrenic and losing his mind. But instead of running from the terror, instead of medicating his profound grief, instead of desperately trying to rebuild his shattered reputation or fleeing back to the safety of conformity, Jung did something incredibly brave, entirely counterintuitive, and deeply revolutionary. He surrendered completely to the darkness. He realized that this terrifying descent, this unbearable suffering, was not a meaningless mental illness, but a sacred, necessary, alchemical process, a profound psychological transformation that required him to face the darkest, most terrifying aspects of his own mind in order to discover the hidden, luminous treasure of his true self. He began to meticulously document his horrifying visions, his intense dialogues with the strange, archetypal figures that emerged from the depths of his psyche, recording his agonizing, beautiful, terrifying journey through the underworld of his own mind in a massive leather-bound volume that would eventually become famous as the Red Book. In the isolation of his study, surrounded by the ruins of his former life, Jung faced the shadow, the dark, repressed, hidden aspects of himself that he had ignored while climbing the ladder of superficial success, and he allowed the fire of his suffering to completely dismantle the false, academic, ego-driven identity he had constructed. Jung understood this agonizing process through the ancient mystical framework of alchemy, realizing that the medieval alchemists who spent their lives trying to turn base metals into gold were not actually talking about literal chemistry, but were using complex, beautiful metaphors to describe the psychological transformation of the human soul. In the alchemical tradition, the process always begins with the prima materia, the raw, chaotic, dark, worthless base material that is fundamentally required to start the great work. And Jung realized that in the alchemy of human transformation, the prima materia is our suffering, our grief, our brokenness, our trauma, and our deepest, most shameful failures. You cannot achieve the gold of a fully realized, deeply authentic, powerful life without starting with the heavy, dark lead of your own pain. Your current suffering is not a mistake. It is the exact, specific prima materia that the universe has provided for your unique psychological alchemy. The first crucial stage of this alchemical transformation is called the nigredo, the blackening, the dark, terrifying, agonizing process where the raw material is thrown into the intense fire and completely burned down, reduced to absolute ashes, putrefying and rotting away until nothing of the original false structure remains. This is exactly what you are experiencing right now when you feel like your life is falling apart, when the pain becomes unbearable, when the loneliness feels like it is eating you alive, and when you feel completely hollowed out and dismantled by the relentless, crushing weight of your circumstances. You are in the fire of the nigredo, and it burns because your illusions, your false attachments, and your fragile ego are being completely incinerated. You must not run from the fire. You must not seek the easy road of distraction, because the nigredo is deeply, fundamentally necessary. It is the only way to completely clear the ground of your psyche, to burn away the weakness and the lies, so that the pure, unbreakable essence of your true self can finally be revealed. After the terrifying burning of the nigredo comes the albedo, the whitening, the gentle, profound stage of washing and purification, where the ashes of your destroyed life are washed by the tears of your deep, authentic grief, bringing a profound sense of clarity, a quiet, melancholic peace, and a sudden, startling illumination of the mind. In the albedo, you begin to see the hidden purpose behind your suffering. You start to understand the profound lessons that the darkness was trying to teach you, and you slowly realize that the destruction of your old life was actually the removal of the very chains that were keeping you small, frightened, and disconnected from your true potential. Finally, through the relentless, brave endurance of the process, you reach the rubedo, the reddening, the glorious, luminous dawn of the new self, where the fully integrated, unbreakable, profoundly wise, and deeply compassionate soul awakes, stepping out of the ashes with a quiet, unshakable power that can never be taken away by the external world. This entire, agonizing, beautiful journey from the darkness to the light, from the destruction of the false ego to the birth of the true self, is what Carl Jung called individuation, the ultimate sacred goal of human existence, the terrifying but magnificent process of becoming exactly who you were fundamentally meant to be, entirely free from the expectations, the conditioning, and the lies of the society around you. Jung emerged from his own terrifying dark night of the soul, from the agonizing nigredo of his shattered career and his horrifying visions, not as a broken man, but as a profoundly transformed, deeply wise, incredibly powerful visionary who had tapped into the massive hidden reservoir of the collective unconscious, bringing back psychological treasures that would forever change the way humanity understands the mind. If Jung had taken the easy road, if he had stayed with Freud, if he had avoided the pain of rejection and the terror of his own shadow, he would have been a successful, wealthy, forgotten footnote in the history of psychology, but because he was willing to walk the hardest, darkest road imaginable, he reached a destination of unparalleled, extraordinary psychological beauty, becoming the preeminent guide for millions of wandering souls who are trying to navigate the terrifying depths of their own darkness. Your pain, your current struggle, the overwhelming darkness that is pressing down on you right now, is exactly the same invitation that Jung received, a divine, psychological calling to stop living on the superficial surface of life, to stop measuring your worth by the shallow, meaningless metrics of external success, and to begin the great, terrifying, magnificent descent into the depths of your own soul. The road you are on is incredibly hard. It is agonizing, it is lonely, and it is tearing you apart piece by piece. But it is tearing you apart because the vehicle you have been driving, the false identity you have been inhabiting, is far too small, too fragile, and too inauthentic to carry you to the extraordinary, luminous destination that your soul is demanding you reach. You are being asked to look at the closed doors not as rejections, but as profound, necessary redirections, deeply protecting you from a life of mediocre, hollow conformity, and forcing you to keep walking through the dark forest until you find the unique, completely original path that was carved specifically for your unique psychological destiny. The loneliness you feel is not an abandonment, it is a sacred, necessary isolation, a clearing away of all the distracting, superficial voices of the world so that you can finally hear the quiet, profound, ancient wisdom of your own intuition, the voice of your true self that has been desperately trying to guide you through the noise. Do not be afraid of the shadow. Do not be terrified of the dark parts of your own mind, the anger, the grief, the shameful desires, the deep-seated fears. These are not monsters to be destroyed. They are fragmented, abandoned pieces of your own soul that are crying out for your love, your acceptance, and your conscious integration. When you turn around and face the shadow, when you stop running from the pain and instead lean into the profound discomfort of your current reality, you reclaim the immense, vital energy that was previously wasted on repression, and you forge an unbreakable, deeply grounded psychological resilience that will allow you to weather any storm the universe ever sends your way. The people who take the easy road, the ones who avoid the dark night, who numb their pain and conform to the shallow expectations of society, may appear to be happy on the surface, but their roots are incredibly shallow. Their foundation is built on sand, and at the first sign of real tragedy, their entire fragile world will completely collapse around them, leaving them with nothing but the terrifying realization that they have lived a completely artificial life. But you, because you are walking this agonizing, difficult, unseen road, because you are enduring the fire of the Negredo, because you are watering the empty dirt of your own soul while the world mocks your lack of visible progress, you are building a psychological foundation of pure, unshakable bedrock, a massive invisible root system that will one day support a life of such profound meaning, such immense creative power, and such breathtaking, authentic beauty that you will look back on this current period of suffering not with resentment, but with deep, overwhelming tears of gratitude. You will realize that every single tear you shed, every night you spent staring at the ceiling in absolute terror, every moment you felt completely crushed by the weight of your own perceived inadequacy was actually the precise, calculated, necessary stroke of a master sculptor chiseling away the heavy, useless marble to reveal the magnificent, perfect masterpiece that was hidden inside the stone all along. The hardest roads always lead to the most beautiful destinations because the beauty is not just found at the end of the journey. The beauty is the profound, alchemical transformation that occurs within your own soul as you bravely, relentlessly put one foot in front of the other through the absolute darkest, most terrifying valleys of human experience. You are not failing, you are not lost, you are not broken, you are simply in the fire, you are in the dirt, you are in the agonizing, sacred process of becoming something so much greater, so much deeper, and so much more powerful than the limited, fragile version of yourself that started this journey. Embrace the heavy, painful reality of the present moment. Surrender to the dismantling of your old life. Trust the profound, hidden wisdom of your own psyche, and know with absolute, unwavering certainty that the universe is not destroying you. It is fiercely, relentlessly, beautifully rebuilding you for a destiny that is completely beyond the limits of your current imagination. Like this video, not for me, but as a promise to yourself that you are not giving up on the road you are on, that you will bravely endure the fire of your own alchemy, and that you will honor the profound, invisible root growth that is happening in the dark soil of your current struggles. And if you want to keep walking this road with the wisdom of Carl Jung beside you, if you are ready to stop running from your shadow and start deeply integrating the raw, authentic power of your unconscious mind, subscribe to join a community of souls who are no longer settling for the easy, superficial illusion, but are boldly, relentlessly committing to the hardest, most beautiful journey of true psychological and spiritual individuation.